Hi everyone, Jeffrey with Treeline Solutions here for another session of practical tips and techniques for IBMi Modernization. Today we're going to talk about using the open source SQuirrel SQL Client with your IBMi. Let's do a quick review of what the video will cover today. The reason why we decided to feature SQuirrel SQL, and we also have videos in the future planned for other similar tools, is that we're a firm believer here at TLS that modernization on the IBMi must begin with a native SQL layer. So what is SQuirrel SQL? Well, today we're just going to cover a basic introduction, installation. There are literally thousands of instructional videos on YouTube if you want to take a deeper dive into all of the functionality. SQuirrel is a Java-based universal SQL client. It provides a more advanced SQL interface than maybe we're used to on the IBMi. I know a lot of places you hear, well, I don't need to use anything else. We have DB2, and I always chuckle at that. The primary reason why you would want to introduce tools like SQuirrel SQL into your shop is, number one, most of them are free. Or if there is a charge, it's a very low charge, or sometimes even a monthly charge. So the tools are much more affordable. So it provides a more advanced SQL interface than we're used to. But also the legacy thought is very linear and it's single dimension in nature. All of the modern methodologies and ecosystems, they're all very multidimensional in nature. So it's important as you plan for modernization on the IBMi to also start training your minds to absorb the information in a multidimensional fashion, which is the way that these ecosystems tend to work today. So if you look at the legacy thought and then all the modern methodologies, the two paradigms, they're just not compatible. That's something to keep in mind. So the more that you get into these tools and you train your mind to work in that multidimensional fashion and also visually absorb the concepts, the more you're going to be able to successfully move towards a modernization strategy and pathway. Let's continue. This video, like many of our videos moving forward, will use the DB2 for iSample database. If you haven't installed that yet, we have a video out on our channel that will walk you through the steps on how to install this. The other thing you might need is Java. If you don't have Java installed on your system, on your PC, then you may need to download it because the tool is Java-based and therefore will require a Java install. The other thing that we'll need is JTOPEN, and of course JTOPEN is used by many of the third-party tools out there to connect to the IBMi. It's a simple jar file, and we'll walk through that installation real quick during this video. So let's go ahead and open our browser and go to the SQuirrel SQL website. And there's lots of good stuff on the home page here. There is Java links. Again, you may need to install Java if you don't already have it on your system. There's driver links that you can go and research driver. There's the Git, which is something that you'll be seeing quite a bit of as we cover these tools. Git is a very popular source repository and change control. One of the things that you might want to pay special attention to are the plugins. And the plugins are written by developers to provide extra functionality to the SQuirrel SQL client. I would encourage everybody to go through this list. There's lots of neat things. The very first one is something that is very useful. So it's the ability to import data from Excel or a CSV file directly into a DB2 database. And we get lots of requests like that in IT, either to upload or extract to an Excel. So this tool will help facilitate some of those requests. And we're going to jump over to the download and install page. If you're running Windows, it's the first link, just click it. There's for Mac and some other Linux platforms you can also download. Well, again, I'm running Windows, so we're going to download the Windows. So we'll click the link and it'll take us over to SourceForge. and we want to save that. We'll be using SourceForge again today when we download JTOPEN. And once it's downloaded, we'll open it. It's an executable jar. So you click OK and it'll run the installer. So let's click Next. Go ahead and read through the information. Here's the Java runtime environment, minimum version requirements, some other packages, and the plugins. We're going to review how to install these because there's a lot of neat little tools in here we can take advantage of. So we'll go ahead and click Next. And we're going to... Now if you get this, don't be alarmed. It just means that it doesn't have authority to create a directory in program files. We didn't run this under administrator. So let's see if we can do this. We'll save it at the root. It doesn't like that. Okay, let's go ahead and put it in Documents. And I already have a version out there, 4.2 SQuirrel. And we'll just overwrite. So here we're going to click everything. Just go ahead and I would recommend installing all of the plugins. That way you can play around. And remember, you're using a sample SQL database. So there's nothing you can absolutely hurt. Worst case scenario, you corrupt the sample database, you can just delete it and reinstall it on the IBMi. So it's a great little playground. Don't be afraid to kick the tires. And we'll continue. So we'll install it. I'd never like to create desktop shortcuts. So we'll go ahead and click Next. And done. That's it. We've installed this SQuirrel SQL Client. Let's continue to the next step. So before we open up SQuirrel, we need to do one more thing. And if you don't have JTOPEN on your system, you need to go over to the sourceforge.net site under the JT400 and download it. It's real quick. You just download, you unzip the zip file. I usually put it off of my root drive directory, so it's easy to find considering I have a number of these tools that access that. But if you just extract it there, we can go on to the next step and get SQuirrel connected to the IBMi. So let's open SQuirrel and set up the connection to our IBMi. And we're going to go over to drivers. Now I encourage everybody to use your mouse overs to explore. There are a lot of tabs and those tabs will change depending on what you click on. Again, the tool is multi-dimensional. But if you mouse over, you'll be able to find some of the features and utilize them. So we're going to go up here and we are going to copy the default driver definitions into the driver list. This will save you some time because it does the initial setup. So we're going to go ahead and copy them. You do this the first time and the first time only because otherwise it will reset. And let's go down to the JTOPEN. You can see I already did it, so I got a double. So I'm going to delete it. And let's open up the JTOPEN driver. Now it gave us all the defaults, but we need to do one more thing. We need to tell it where JTOPEN is on our PC. So again, I've already done it, so I'm there. It's going to, there's a 10.6, and it's under a subfolder called lib is what you're looking for. And it's the JT400 jar. Now if you don't see the class name at the bottom, click this list drivers button and it'll refresh it. There's only one, but make sure it's there. And now you click it, and you can see there's a check mark there and a message at the bottom. And if you subset your list using the tab, you can toggle between. But let's go back for a real quick. Just look at all the drivers out there for the different databases. So what's really neat is if you learn this environment for DB2 for your IBMi, and you start using other databases as you modernize, you can use the same interface to maintain the SQL. So after our driver is set up, we can go and actually set up our connection. Now the connection is referred to as an alias, and you simply give it a name. You can set multiple up. We'll call this one my IBMi. And there's the default connection string. It's the IP address of your IBMi plus the sample database. Standard IBMi user ID and password, and then we can test the connection. Excellent, we got a good connection. And let's go do one more thing. We're going to go into the properties here, and this is kind of one of the gotchas that I've noticed in the legacy shops is if you bring in a tool like this and then they'll try and load every single library or every single file on the IBMi into the tool. Well, in most cases it's going to choke and lock up. And a lot of cases what happens is the reply is, well, the tool don't work, we're not going to use it, and then they put it on the shelf and they don't ever try and utilize it again. So this is a trick to get around one of those gotchas. We don't want to load all the libraries in on the IBMi. You want to be selective. So before we even connect, we're going to go ahead and we're going to filter the list to include only the sample database. So we'll select load schemas, filter by name, and we're just going to enter sample. Now we're going to clear the current schema table, so just click this button and that will clear everything out for you. And then go ahead and click OK. So now we're all set and we can connect. It'll use the defaults. So now there's the connection to the sample database on our IBMi. And we can open up the tab, look at some of the tables. So everything looks great. So before we continue with our review of SQuirrel, I wanted to show you a little tip. If you go into your aliases under Properties, you'll find a tab called Connection. What this tab enables you to do is set a keep alive SQL statement. So it's just a simple SQL statement that executes every 120 seconds, and it's designed to keep the connection from timing out. So this will help your performance. It's a real quick setting, and we'll just reconnect. And let me close down this second session. And they're all set. We'll have a keep alive that's called every 120 seconds to keep our session connected. Let's continue. So let's do a quick run through, just an overview of the SQuirrel client. As I said before, the tool is multi-dimensional, so depending on what you click, it will actually change the tabs that are displayed inside the tool. The first one is the connection, and these are all of the properties for the connection. So if you're ever having an issue with something not working quite the way it should, be sure to check those properties because you may be able to find something that will correct your problem. And we'll go through some of the other tabs, and as you can see, everything is set out in front of you. There's no need to run multiple commands like display file field description, display file description, display object description. Everything's in front of you at your fingertips. All you need to do is just explore the tabs. Another thing the tool is doing is it's actually teaching you these concepts because your mind is actually absorbing them as you go through them. So it's a great way to start learning more of the modern, because most of the tools are set up in this fashion where you can have all the information that you need at your fingertips, and then you can go on from there. So let's go in and look at a table, and you can see the same thing. The tabs change depending on what you click, and it's the same thing. You have all the information that you would need about this file, including the ability to return records and actually view the data. There's the row count, the columns, they give you the column types, the names, the primary key of the file. Again, it puts all the information about the table in one spot so that you can quickly go through and find the information that you need. So from a productivity standpoint, just a really excellent way to go. There are the indexes for the employee master, the privileges, all the way down to column privileges. Another neat thing is the source. You don't have to know SQL because the tool will teach you. Anytime you want to see the SQL, there's usually an option that will generate it for you. Here's the DB2 column details. So lots of great stuff, easy to navigate. If you want to view the SQL, say for instance an insert, we can actually tell the tool to create it based on the table, and then now we have every record in the file has now been translated to an SQL insert statement. So again, excellent way to get yourself embedded into SQL. Let's continue. Let's execute an SQL statement. And the quickest way to do that is to go click the SQL tab. We'll clear out what we had in there before from our inserts. And we'll do select asterisk from employee. And we'll go up and click the little run guy, and remember to use your mouse over on all your tabs, and there we go. We have all the records returned. And the metadata, you can take a look at that. There's an overview chart. You can pivot the table or rotate it and get a view of it that way, or you can view the results as text. So let's do something really neat. Let's use our mouse over. Let's find there we go, store results of SQL in file. So now we have a little utility where we can actually export the results from our query to a actual PC file, CSV, XML, JSON, whatever format that you want to export this in. There are a number of them supported. And we'll call this one SQL or SQuirrel export, right? So we're going to do an Excel. Be sure to check out all the other formats. And once we're finished, we will execute. And it's going to go and run the queries and export it to the Excel. Well, it's going to open it up in File Manager. Let's open the file. So we have a quick and easy way to put database information into an Excel. Good stuff. Let's continue. Before we conclude today, I want to share one more common issue with you that might help. So we're going to actually modify the database in this. And the way that we do that is that we're going to refactor. We want to modify a column. Let's do employee number. And remember, this is actually going to update the table on the IBMi, the comments. So we're going to put just something to show us that we changed it. You can always view the SQL. So we get a strange message, get an SQL error message. So to save you the trouble, what's happening is that the library names are overqualified, and the IBMi doesn't like that. So I'm going to show you a couple. If you go into the refactoring in the global preferences and take off the qualified table names and the quotes, both in the refactoring and in the SQL script tab, that will enable you to follow through and go ahead and update. Let's go back to modify tables. We're going to do the employee number. We can show the SQL, and as you can see, the qualified naming has been reduced. So let's go ahead and execute. There we go, and we open up the remarks. Excellent. I hope this helps. Have fun. Hi everyone, Jeffrey with Treeline Solutions again. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. We hope that you look for our additional videos in the future. And if you want any more information about Treeline Solutions and our services, please visit our website. Take care. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.